Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
What's up, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, we are going to talk about the REvil ransomware game. You might be asking yourself, who's REvil? Or how did they blow up and get so huge across the global stage so quickly? And where'd they go? Did you know that REvil was first seen only 3 years ago? Okay, you might have known that. Did you know that on July 2nd, 2021, REvil hacked the MSP Software Provider Kaseya? Okay, you knew that too. But did you also know that on June 20th, 2019, REvil hacked another MSP software company? Can you guess who was involved? Yep, it was Kaseya, the same Kaseya in the news just a couple of weeks ago. REvil has executed ransomware attacks against thousands of companies, including Harris Federation, Acer Computer, Invenergy, Apple, the law firm representing tons of celebrities, including Lady Gaga, Madonna, Donald Trump. With all that under their belts, believe it or not, they are not the biggest ransomware strain. According to research by Emsisoft, Revil is number 3 in the top 10 most commonly reported ransomware strains of the second quarter 2021. That was before Kaseya, but still, the number one out there is Stop or DJVU, commanding 71.2% of the reported strains. I'll be doing an episode on Stop or DJVU very soon, so don't forget to subscribe and smash the bell so you'll be updated when I do upload that video. We want to make sure we are secure and prepared in case one of these attackers tries to infiltrate our system. So today we're going to take a look at Revil and see what we can learn. There are a number of videos and articles out there that claim to tell the Gen Crab Revil story, but I watched them, I read them, and I wasn't satisfied. I felt they were saying, well, they're the same because we say so, and we're the experts. They were too macro and did not give me the details or the proof that I needed to make me feel like I knew who Revil is, how they work, and what they're capable of. My goal today is that at the end of this video, you can spot them from a mile away. So today I am skipping the agenda, throwing it out. It's gonorrhea. Here is just a short list of some of the resources I used for this episode. I really went deep down the rabbit hole to get all of this information and piece it all together in an understandable way. Now, you can certainly spend days, weeks, months, years doing the research on your own, or you can, as I always say, sit back, grab some popcorn, kick your feet up, enjoy. But I wouldn't lie down because it's joking hazard.
Listen to me, boy. Pay attention when I'm talking to you. Nice boy, but doesn't listen to a word you say.
So, who is Revil? Revil, which stands for Ransomware Evil, also known as Sodinokibi, is a Russia-based or Russian-speaking private ransomware as a service operation. After an attack, Revil would threaten to publish the information on their dark web page Happy Blog unless the ransom was received. As part of the criminal cyber gang's operations, they are known for stealing nearly 1 terabyte of information from the law firm Grubman, Shire, Meisles, and Sachs, and demanding a ransom to not publish it. The group claimed to have done this by deciphering the elliptic curve cryptography that the law firm used to protect its data. The group had attempted to extort other companies and public figures as well based on that data. In May 2020, they demanded $42 million from the then U.S. President Donald Trump. According to a later interview with an alleged member of Revil, they found a buyer for the Trump information, but this can't be confirmed. But can you imagine a U.S. president being held hostage to a hacker group and being forced to pay $42 million to keep information private? Or another party buying that information to try to blackmail a president like Trump? Now, I wonder if that could actually be kind of found in, let's say, Trump's taxes, or from one of his law firms, kind of like the Stormy Daniels payment, or one of his many sub companies. It'd be interesting to know, of course, if he was the buyer. In that same interview with one of the alleged members of Revel, the member claimed that they would bring in $100 million in ransoms in 2020. Now, as ruthless as they may seem, there have been some glimmers of remorse and philanthropy from the gang. In October 2018, GanCrab developers had a small change of heart and released the decryption keys for all Syrian victims. It supposedly was sparked by a tweet from a Syrian father who lost his sons in the unrest in Syria, so they died. And all he had left were pictures on his of his 2 boys on his now encrypted laptop, and he couldn't afford the demanded $600. The GANCrab developers then posted the decryptor keys on a hacker forum saying they believed Syria should have been on the no attack list from the beginning.
Say, pardon me, but could you help out a fellow American who's down on his luck?
Hit the road!
Now, in order to understand the Revel story, you have to understand where they came from. And to understand that, you have to take a look at GANCrab and the group behind GANCrab, Pinchy Spider. The story probably starts before GANCrab. Who knows? Maybe Pinchy Spider were also part of the group behind DRIDX that consisted of an affiliate program where Evil Corp ran the network and affiliates rented access, or maybe even further back to the Business Club, which is aka Ingrid Spider, or maybe the similar names are just some kind of uncanny coincidence. We're going to start at GANCrab because there are direct correlations between GANCrab and Revel, and I'm going to show you. GANCrab is a form of ransomware that encrypted all the user's files and changed the extension. During the first months of 2019, they presented several new versions that demanded a $2,000 ransom in Dash or Bitcoin in exchange for the decryption key. In the beginning, after 2 months of active distribution, the first versions of GANCrab ransomware were defeated by the Romanian police, experts from Bitdefender, and Europol. Romanian police. Now, I know that Bitdefender and Europol are both part of the No More Ransomware project, but I'm not sure, in fact, the Romanian police are. If you're not familiar with the No More Ransomware project, it has 170 partners worldwide, so in 170 partners, maybe the Romanian police could be there. And it claims to have saved victims of ransomware about $1 billion by decrypting ransomware encrypted files for people after they upload them to their online portal. So if you get infected with ransomware, you can actually go to the No More Ransomware portal. You can upload some examples of files from your system, and they can basically tell you the variant and, in certain circumstances, give you the decryption key or the decryptor itself. Now, definitely spread the word about the No More Ransomware project if you have not already. The more people that know, the more people that can maybe save that their data without having to pay the ransom. Now, after revealing the flaw in the ransomware code, authorities and Bitdefender created a free GANCrab decryptor, which is available via the No More Ransomware project. The GANCrab family consisted of numerous variants, such as GDCB, Crab with a K, Crab with a C virus, GANCrab 2, GANCrab 3, GANCrab 4, and GANCrab 5. In version 1, the extension was .gdcb for GANCrab. Version 2 and 3 had the .crab with a C extension. In version 4, it went to a .kcrab extension. And then version 5 and later, they started playing around with random 5 to 10 characters in their extension. So it was first observed in January 2018, but according to research by Proofpoint, according to research by Proofpoint, GANCrab was deployed during infection chains involving DRIDX botnet, which I had mentioned earlier, and TA547. Later investigations showed that GANCrab was also being distributed via the RIG and Grandsoft exploit kits, as well as via email spam. GANCrab ransomware quickly began to proliferate and receive regular updates from its developer, Pinchy Spider, which over the course of the year established a ransomware as a service operation with a dedicated set of affiliates. So as Pinchy Spider gained traction, GANCrab branched out from initially infecting just private computers, like anybody it could get, and making the jump to going after enterprises. CrowdStrike Intelligence first identified new GANCrab ransomware deployment tactics against enterprises in mid-February 2019, when a threat actor was observed performing actions on a victim host in order to install GANCrab. So they were watching this guy this person as they were trying to infect a system with GANCrab. Though initially unsuccessful, the threat actor returned later to perform further reconnaissance on the victim network. The following day, the threat actor returned a third time and manually removed security software from the host that was preventing the installation of GANCrab. Using RDP and stolen credentials from the initially compromised host, the threat actor then proceeded to move laterally around the victim network and was able to deploy GANCrab across several hosts. Throughout the reconnaissance process, the threat actor used system administration tools such as sysinternals process monitor, process hacker, and a file search tool called LAN Search Pro to assist with the collection of information from the hosts. These techniques and tooling are commonly associated with nation-state adversary groups and penetration testing. Now, this shows a point I've been making for a long time now. People just don't understand that this is not a 10-minute thing. These guys aren't spraying out ransomware in some drive-by attack. They're in your system for weeks, months, even as long as a year. They're coming in, looking around, getting to a specific point, then seeing something that maybe they've never done before. They're leaving, learning about it, coming back, and working to get to the next point before they have as much of your infrastructure mapped out and enough data stolen before they then trigger the ransomware. Now, that encryption can also last a good deal of time, depending on how large the infrastructure is, as well as the sheer amount of data to be encrypted. Makes sense. So, for someone who to be rooting around in a network for that period of time and not setting off alarms in itself is alarming at the state of internet security at these fairly large corporations. So, to go back to the change in tactics, going from attacking just anyone with a computer to focusing on enterprise victims, that officially placed Pinchy Spider and GandCrab in the growing trend of targeted, low volume but high return ransomware deployments known as big game hunting. Pinchy Spider sold access to use GandCrab ransomware under a partnership program with a limited number of accounts. The program was operated with a 60-40 split in profits, 60% to what they call a customer, but that's the person who's doing all the work, as is common among e-crime actors. But Pinchy Spider was also willing to negotiate up to a 70-30 split for what they called sophisticated customers. That means attackers who are really good and can get into massive corporations. In February 2019, hackers used a then 2-year-old vulnerability in a software package used by remote IT support firms. It's another way of saying MSPs. What other MSP do we know? Kaseya. So to gain a foothold on vulnerable networks and deploy the GandCrab ransomware on those companies' customer workstations. So GandCrab was able to infect an MSP to gain control of the MSP's customers' workstations. The vulnerability used by the hackers impacted the Kaseya plugin for the ConnectWise managed software. So Kaseya has been in this situation before. A professional service automation, ConnectWise Manager software was a professional services automation product used by IT support firms. The vulnerability was found in November 2017 by a security researcher named Alex Wilson. He discovered a SQL injection vulnerability, which is CVE 2017-18362, in this plugin that could allow an attacker to create new administrator accounts on the main Kaseya app. He also published a proof of concept code on GitHub that could automate the attack. It's important to note that this was fixed. The problem was a lot of these MSPs had not installed the updates. So, on May 31st, 2019, or June 1st, depending on which resource you get the information from, the developers of GandCrab Ransomware as a Service announced that they were retiring after earning over $2 billion since January 2018, so they claimed. The news was met with interest and skepticism within the security community as multiple affiliate groups regularly conducted extremely successful GandCrab campaigns since its inception. Very shortly after GandCrab retired on June 17th of 2019, the FBI released the master decryption keys for the ransomware, and Bitdefender released a decryptor that allowed victims to recover their files for free that works with versions 1.4, 5, 5.0.4, 5.1, and 5.2. This effectively made GandCrab outdated. It's not known how law enforcement obtained these keys, but it could have been through a seizure of one of the Tor payment servers. After analyzing the threat landscape, SecureWorks Counter Threat Unit, or CTU, researchers determined that some or all of GandCrab's developers, which the CTU research team refers to as Gold Garden, even though most people know them as Pinchy Spider, so they simply shifted their focus to a different ransomware variant. That variant or strain, Revel. There has been substantial forensic research done to tie the group behind GandCrab to the Revel ransomware strain, including both had a nearly identical string decoding function verified by VirusTotal. Here is a screenshot of what we're talking about. CTU researchers identified and extracted a portion of the opcodes associated with its string decoding function. Searching VirusTotal for samples containing this opcode pattern, 286 unique samples were identified. Further analysis of all 286 samples were confirmed to be either GandCrab or Revel, including Revel's decryptor. No other malware families using this opcode pattern have been identified. Second, both used a similar URL building logic. Revel 1.1 implemented URL building functionality that produced the same command and control URL pattern as GandCrab. The command control URLs for both families consisted of 2 URI subpaths, followed by a randomly generated resource name and an extension like GIF, PNG, JPEG, etc. The subpath names and extensions are retrieved from the hard-coded values. So all of these values you see here in first subpath, second subpath, and the extensions are hard-coded inside Revel inside Revel and GandCrab, so in both. Now, it is theoretically possible for another entity to come up with exactly the same way of doing this and using exactly the same values in each silo, first and second subpath, but I mean, considering the effort required and the insignificant nature of the URL pattern, it's more likely that the code originally created for GandCrab was repurposed for Revel. Up next, there were hints within Revel that it was supposed to be GandCrab version 6. So, CTU analysis of the Revel beta sample revealed 2 findings that are significant in proving a link between GandCrab and this first identified version of Revel. And that's GCFIN for GandCrab Final, as well as GC6 for GandCrab version 6. Now there's another small piece where the stat JSON integer value was like 1536, which the hexadecimal value of that, or conversion of that, is 0x600, which would stand for version 6.00, and Revel's versioning system doesn't function that way. It was 1.00 and then 1.01. So again, what we're looking at is at least some of the developers or the team from GandCrab appears to have repurposed code and repurposed some of their development environment, because this is showing the development environment of that particular system. Lastly, we have regional whitelisting, and this is what we've heard recently, that Revel was not attacking companies or individuals inside Russia, so it was using checking the keyboard settings to see if it was set to like a Russian language or something from a Russian Federation country, and all of that to make sure that they did not attack anybody in their home country and get themselves in trouble. So it's difficult to find any public announcements from companies or entities that have been affected by GandCrab, but if we look at the recent past, an important link we could make between the two groups, it's their success with and their understanding of MSPs. So GandCrab is known to have successfully attacked a number of MSPs and their clients. So let's just take a look at one of those. It's Doctors Management Services Incorporated. The list of companies managed by MDS contains 38 medical companies with words like inpatient specialist, mental health, and neurological in names. So the information is not just trivial. The incident, which may have exposed patients' name, address, date of birth, social security number, driver's license number, insurance and Medicare/Medicaid information and numbers, and medical information, including some sensitive diagnostic information, was first detected on December 24th, 2018, when they noticed a problem with their network. The initial unauthorized access to the network took place on April 1st, 2017 through a remote desktop protocol on a DMS workstation. They were in the network from April 1st, 2017 to December 2018. This is well over a year of someone fishing around in your network. So it's important to note that DMS did not pay the ransom and was able to restore their backup. So we see that there are some similarities. There's some transfer of code, Let's look at the technical skills of Pinchy Spider and see what we can then later, when we look at Revel, try to backtrack. So the Pinchy Spider and GANCrab were known to use RC4 for string decryption, enumeration of keyboard layout lists for local verification. That's what I was talking about before about languages, enumeration and termination of processes associated with ransomware targeted files. That's basically looking for all of the files and processes that they want to turn off, like MS SQL Server or antivirus programs. Enumeration of domain name for RUTLD to prevent encryption of Russian companies. Use of CRC32 checksums for configuration, encrypted file, and public key verification. Use of elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman with curve 25519 and 256-bit keys for asymmetric encryption. Use of ECIS using SHA-3 256 to derive a symmetric key, and AES 256 in CFB mode to protect generated private elliptic curve keys. Then use of SALSA 20 for symmetric file data encryption. So now we know what their technical skills and techniques were. Are you ready? Want me to hold your hand? No? Okay. So let's start on April 10th, 2019. According to research, the very first version of Revel was a beta that I previously mentioned with the GC6N, CIN, and GC6 strings. So that beta version that was uploaded to VirusTotal on April 20th, 2019. This is the first, just a month before the public announcement from GANCrab that they were going to shut down. It's thought that between April and May of 2019, the REvil Ransomware was still in beta, hence the beta version of Revel here being uploaded in VirusTotal. So it was in beta development and was not really meant to be used in production. Next, we have on the 17th of April, 2019, Revel was spotted in the wild when threat actors leveraged an Oracle WebLogic exploit just one day before Oracle patched the vulnerability in their WebLogic application. So Oracle first patched the issue CVE 2019-2725 on April 26th, and on April 25th, the initial stage of the ransomware attack occurred. This means Revel Group already knew or had knowledge of the vulnerability. The attempt was only a trial done to see if the server was exploited or exploitable. And then on April 26th, the day that Oracle patched it, the attackers made an HTTP connection to a different vulnerable server. This variant did not need any human interaction. That's important to note. The vulnerability in WebLogic allowed the attackers to leverage it to have the affected system download a copy of the ransomware from the attacker's IP address on its own. There was no human interaction to download this file. PowerShell was observed being used, along with the use of setutil, utility to the command prompt to download the file. So the case is also particularly interesting because after finishing deploying Revel, or Sodinokibi, ransomware inside the victim's network, the attackers followed up with an additional CVE 2019-2725 exploit. So they used the same exploit approximately 8 hours later. However, this time, the attackers chose to distribute GANCrab version 5.2. So they started installing in this network Revel, then they came back 8 hours later using the same exploit to install GANCrab 5.2. Now it's puzzling why the attackers would actually choose to distribute additional different ransomware to the same target, Sodinokibi being a new flavor of ransomware. The idea is perhaps the attackers felt that their earlier attempts had not worked, so they wanted to bring something that they were more familiar with, the version of GANCrab, but who knows? Again, we see the connection between one entity first installing the new and improved flavor, which they changed the name of, and most of the functionality, to an old faithful that they were really familiar with. Next up, we have Revel 1.0. On April 28th, Revel 1.0 was uploaded to VirusTotal. Upon dissecting this version, they realized that the URL build logic was too similar to GANCrab's to be a coincidence. That's what I mentioned earlier. They used the same URL building logic, thereby further linking the two entities together. This new version made a number of modifications like adding new exploits, changing registry root key, adding a wipe key, implementing the URL building logic that we mentioned, and fixing a bunch of bugs. Then, On May 7th, 2019, Revel 1.01 was uploaded to VirusTotal, again improving the system. Specifically, they removed the expert privilege escalation requirements for full execution, they encrypted data regardless of privilege level, and they made encryption of network mapping drives optional by adding the -nolan argument. So, here we see the public announcement from Pinchy Spider, aka Gancrab, aka Gold Garden. You can see the overlap time. The group could very well have been working on developing the beta, version 1 and 1.01, to get to a point where they said, hey, you know, this new one is actually much better than the old one, so let's ditch the old and work on the new one. On June 11, 2019, Revel version 1.02 was seen via VirusTotal. This version had a bunch of updates and fixes, including enhanced whitelisting of program files, so SQL subfolders, as well as whitelisting validation by adding inspection of get user default UL or UI language, and get system default UI language. Partially implemented a lock file logic by generating a lock file name based on the first 4 bytes of the base64 decoded PK. The next version, they removed this function, or disable, and then they remove the function. And the next, further one, they enhanced folder whitelisting logic that took special considerations if the folder is associated with program files directories. They encrypted program file subfolders that does not contain SQL in the path, and they compared other folders to the list of whitelist folders. They then introduced Revel registry root key, sub_key, registry value containing the attacker's public key. On June 20th, 2019, Revel was leveraged in a strategic web compromise against the Italian winrare.it website, replacing the WinRAR installation executable with an instance of the malware to infect customer systems. On the same day, threat actors breached at least 3 managed service providers. That's Revel met 3 managed service providers in June. On June 20th of 2019, basically either right before or right after Pinchy Spider went offline. And then he used the access to deploy Revel to MSPs customers. On July 9th, 2019, Revel 1.03 was uploaded to VirusTotal. This new version again had a bunch of changes. Removed partially implemented lock function. They leveraged WMI to continuously monitor for and kill newly launched processes whose names are listed in their configuration key. They encoded store shellcode. They added the -path argument. They did not wipe folders, even if wipe was equal to true. They did not set desktop background. They did not contact the C2 server, even if net equals true. And they encrypted files in the specified folder and dropped the ransom note. Then they finally made a number of registry changes. So we're up to August 2019. TSM Consulting. It's an MSP that was providing products and services to sites in 22 Texas towns and counties that were subject to a devastating ransomware attack. Some of those government agencies were already back online very quickly, but again, MSP, Revel, they had experience through their Gancrab attacks in 2019 and 2018. Also in August, 2 Wisconsin companies that provide an online service to dentist office, again, a form of MSP, PerkSoft and the Digital Dental Record had to tell their customers that the software they used to connect to individual offices had been infected with ransomware. Wisconsin-based Digital Dental Record and PerkSoft partnered on what's called DDS Safe, a medical records retention and backup solution. So in order for that to work, they would have to have access to the client's computers to be able to make that backup through the DDS Safe. The DDS Safe software is what was exploited. In September 2019, version 1.04 was uploaded to VirusTotal and had changes including leveraging PowerShell and WMI to delete shadow copies if the victim's operating system is newer than Windows XP. For Windows XP and older versions, uses the original code from the older versions of Revel. They also removed the folder wipe capability completely in version 1.03. They had only disabled it, and they made more registry changes. So where did it go from there? 2020, according to Revel, was an amazing year. They claimed they brought in over $100 million in ransom. from companies including Complete Technology Solutions, which is a Colorado-based MSP that helps dentist offices manage their IT infrastructure. Revel was deployed onto more than 100 dentistry businesses that rely on CTS. The proposed ransom was $700,000, although I have not verified whether or not that was paid. But that was what was demanded. We move on to Travelex. Travelex is the foreign currency exchange service. They paid $2.3 million in ransom to Revel. Now, I believe that was actually negotiated down for something like $6 or $7 million. We move on to Artec Corporation, Artec Information Systems, one of the largest IT staffing organizations in the U.S., disclosed a ransomware attack that occurred during 2020. The incident, which affected individuals' personal, health, and financial information, was extremely significant for them. Then we go on to Grubman Shire, Misles, and Sachs, which we have mentioned a few times in this episode. Now, the ranges for the ransomware, the original demand was $21 million. It wasn't paid on time, and what they usually do is they say, if you don't pay it on time, we double it. So they double it to $42 million. I found other reporting that claimed that it was negotiated down to $365,000, but it's refuted from the company itself whether or not they even paid a ransom. We move on to Elexon in 2020. It's the organization that helps balance and settle the UK's electricity market. It was attacked by Revel on May 11th. Sensitive internal data was stolen in the attack, with some posted on the dark web to pressure the organization into making the ransomware payment. Now, a lot of these have question marks there in terms of the ransom amount here on the right. It's because most non-publicly traded companies are not required to make this information public. So we move over to Cook County, Texas. Texas, the Cook County found themselves the next victim of the Revel ransomware. The attackers threatened to start releasing data within 7 days of the attack after posting screenshots thought to be documents and data from the county's police department on the dark web. Again, I wasn't able to find how much that ransomware was, but must have, if it was paid, definitely added to the $100 million. We move on to Ma Labs in September 2020. One of the leading distributors of PC components, Ma Labs, was breached by the cyber gang called Revel. This ransomware attack has left its mark on customers and competitors of component distributors. According to the threat intelligence from Cybel, the operators of Revel ransomware claim to have a hold of 949 gigabytes of data from the central servers of Ma Labs. They have essentially 1,000 servers that were affected by this attack. As a result of this ransomware attack, confidential data from Ma Labs' computer, thousands of documents with details of employees, partners, and clients are at risk of being leaked. We move over to Banco Estado. Banco Estado, one of Chile's third largest banks. So the third largest bank in Chile was forced to shut down all branches. While initially the bank hoped to recover from the attack unnoticed, so they didn't want to tell anybody, the damage was extensive, according to sources, with the ransomware encrypting the vast majority of internal servers and employee workstations. The bank initially disclosed the attack on Sunday, but as time went by, the bank officials realized employees wouldn't be able to work on Monday and decided to keep branches closed while they recovered. Then we move over to Gaming Partners International. It's a full-service supply of gaming furniture and equipment to casinos worldwide. The Revel ransomware gang claims to have stolen info from the systems of the company before encrypting them. So, we move on to 2021. What happened in 2021? It was another extremely successful. Here, a lot of these companies are publicly traded, so I was able to find the information, of course. We start off in January 2021 with Dairy Farm. Bleeping Computer was contacted by a threat actor who stated that the Revel ransomware group had compromised Dairy Farm Group's network and encrypted devices around January 14th, 2021. The Dairy Farm Group operates over 10,000 outlets and has 230,000 employees throughout Asia. In 2019, the Dairy Farm Group's total annual sales exceeded $27 billion. The group operates numerous grocery, convenience store, health and beauty, home furnishing, and restaurant brands in the Asia markets, including Welcome, Giant, Cold Storage, Hero, 7-Eleven, Rose Pharmacy, GNC, Manning's, IKEA, Maxim's, and more. So they paid $30 million in ransom to get their systems decrypted, with 230,000 employees counting on you to keep them employed, and 10,000 stores that need to be open in order to sell their products. You can understand why. Next up, a Steel Flash, March 2021. On April 2nd, world-leading French electronics manufacturer services company, a Steel Flash, released a statement confirming the company has been the victim of a cybersecurity incident. The company affirmed the attack was detected at the end of March during a routine check by its IT teams and recognized the involvement of the REvil ransomware group. Steel Flash operates 18 plants and 2 R&D centers, employs 6,200 people, and has an annual revenue that goes over 1 billion euro. So they paid, it was between 12 and 24 million. Again, if you don't pay by the first deadline, the REvil ransomware makes you pay twice as much. So the initial was 12 million, and then it went up to 24 million. Acer Computer. Acer suffered a REvil ransomware attack that attracted the highest ransomware demand in history up to that point, of course. Kaseya would later smash that. Advanced Intel cyber intelligence platform Endel reported that the REvil ransomware gang attempted to exploit Acer's Microsoft Exchange server. So they got through the Microsoft Exchange server, or at least that's what they were trying. The initial exploit was at the Microsoft Exchange server level. That ransom amount was $50 million. We move on to Quanta. Now, Quanta is Apple, a manufacturer of Apple MacBooks. So Apple was targeted, well, they say was targeted with the $50 million ransomware attack following the theft of the trove of engineering and manufacturing schematics of current and future products from Quanta, a Taiwan-based company that manufactures MacBooks and other products for Apple. Contained within the revealed files are manufacturing diagrams for Apple's already released 2020 M1 MacBook Air refresh, and an as-yet unreleased laptop that features additional ports in line with the existing rumors of the upcoming laptop refresh from Apple. That ransom, $50 million. Pierre Faber, leading French pharmaceutical group Pierre Faber, suffered a REvil ransomware attack where the attackers were demanding a ransom payment in Bitcoin worth approximately $25 million. Pierre Faber is the second largest pharmaceutical group in France and the second largest demo cosmetics laboratory globally. With over 10,000 employees worldwide, Pierre Faber develops a wide variety of products ranging from chemotherapy drugs to skincare products. So they announced that they had suffered a cyber attack. Apparently they didn't pay it on time because the initial ransomware ransom amount of $25 million was doubled to $50 million. JBS, I think we all know JBS. It's so fresh in our minds. If you haven't watched the episode on JBS, I highly suggest you do. There is a link above here, and there will be a link in the permanently pinned comment below. So, for those who don't know about the JBS story, I'll give you a quick intro. JBS SA, a Brazil-based meat processing company, supplies approximately 1/5 of meat globally, making it the world's largest producer of beef, chicken, and pork by sales. So, if you go back to June 2021, if you notice that there was an increase in meat prices when you were buying it, it was because of this. The attack was compared to the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack, which occurred earlier in June, but it wasn't by the same group. All facilities belonging to JBS USA, JBS American subsidiary, including those focused on pork and poultry, faced disruption due to the attack. All JBS-owned beef facilities in the United States were rendered temporarily inoperable. That ransomware, $11 million. And finally, Kaseya. Again, if you haven't heard it or read about it or listened to any episodes or watched my episode, there's a link to my episode here above, and again, one pin in the pinned comment below. I don't think I need to say too much about Kaseya because it's still in the news about the aftermath of that. The ransomware was between 50 and 70 million. Needless to say, everything is back online. Most clients, I think there still are some clients that are having issues, but it will be taken care of because there is a universal decryptor. So, how does REvil spread? All right, how do we notice whether or not we feel that REvil is attacking us? REvil is known to spread via numerous methods, including mall spam, fake forum posts, MSP vulnerabilities, Rig exploit kit, vulnerable pulse secure VPN servers, web logic vulnerabilities, and RDP attacks. These are all areas that if you incorporate into your infrastructure and your network, you should be making sure that you review your security policies and harden them even more. Revil's toolset, what do they use? On May 7th, 2020, Red Team posted on their blog that they secured forensic evidence in the form of disk images of VPS servers used by cybercriminals behind Revel. These VPS systems contain the tools the attackers were using. So what do they use? AdRecon, CrackMap Exec, Ghost, Impact Secret Stump, Mimikatz, Pentest Box with Metasploit, Plink.exe, Powersploit, Proxifier, and PS Tools. They are also using two executables, EventLog version 6 fw3.exe for .NET 3 and EventLog version 6 fw4.exe for .NET 4 that are transferred to the victim machines to view users' login history. So, do we know for sure? Can we now say we know who Revel is? What have we learned about the similarities between GandCrab and Revel? We know both have been deployed at one point or another using Dridix. We know that both were deployed via Rig exploit kit. We know that there is an uncannily similar URL build logic between GandCrab and Revel. We know that there are keys within the debug paths that seem to indicate that the Revel beta version was labeled as GandCrab version 6, specifically the GCFIN and the GC6. We also know that in the stat.json version there was a key integer value which usually represents the version. The hex conversion is to 6.0, which is not part of Revel's versioning but does match GandCrab's versioning. And we know that both were intimately familiar with Kaseya and other MSP enterprises. So while we cannot say that the entire team moved from GandCrab to Revel, we can speculate and we can say with a good degree of confidence that at least some of the developers and or some of the code was taken from GandCrab and repurposed in Revel. But where did they go? The world's full of speculation as where Revel has gone. Were they shut down by Russia before the big WWF-style Joe Biden versus Vladimir Putin showdown? Or does the U.S. actually have the cyber muscle to crush a group like this? Did they just retire or, change their focus like they did with GandCrab? Well, for me, the most striking evidence is that the story stopped dead in its tracks with zero information about it. So the way these things have gone down in the past is if a group has been taken out by a known entity like the FBI or CISA or the Romanian police, then they take credit for it. The FBI blasts over the news that they got this hacker or that hacker, or were able to shut down this network, or they killed this terrorist. Microsoft makes news when they get a cyber criminal's network or infrastructure shut down. But here, nothing, nada, zilch. This leaves, for me, really only two scenarios that I can kind of play out in my head that make sense. Either it was a top secret mission, like the Bin Laden mission, from some major entity which they are keeping hush-hush, or the guys, Revel, felt that the heat was way too high after the Kaseya hack, and they just dropped everything and went underground. And I just mean pulled plugs, threw stuff out, ready to start over. Considering they potentially made over $2 billion in 2021, it's not necessarily a big decision or a hard decision to make. But if they just dropped and ran, you could probably expect them to pop back up sometime soon. Now, hopefully, after this episode and everything that I've been able to share with you, you know enough to be able to spot them from a mile away, based on their tactics, based on the tool sets they use, based on the ways they exploit, etc. But maybe they're already back online as the new Black Matter ransomware. On a hacker forum just a couple days ago, a new group called Black Matter proclaimed that they have a project and they're looking for affiliates. And then this project, in quotes, Black Matter, has incorporated in itself the best features of DarkSide, Revel, and Lockbit. Now, Lockbit is another ransomware operation that first appeared in 2019, and all three are thought to operate out of Russia. Exactly what best features Black Matter borrowed from other groups remains unclear. So, it's possible that they basically threw out everything of Revel, started anew, and they're coming back online a couple days later. With that, I say adieu. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't, and smash the bell if you haven't, because I'll be coming out with new episodes very soon. And take 10 minutes, just relax, and forget about Revel for now. Alright, thanks again for watching. See you guys soon. Take care.
Don't forget to run!